They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I served mine at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, the exact temperature that turns water to ice, slow enough that you don't notice until it's already frozen solid around you. My name is Vincent Marlowe. For 30 years, I built empires out of frozen water, started with one ice distribution plant in Gary, Indiana, and turned it into Marlowe Cryogenics, industrial cooling systems for hospitals, data centers, pharmaceutical companies. 300 million in annual revenue. Forbes called me the Ice King of the Midwest. But none of that mattered the day I got the call that my daughter was dying. The nurse's voice was professional, detached. Mr. Marlowe, your daughter Natasha was brought into Sedano Medical Center an hour ago. She's in critical condition. We need you here immediately. I was in a board meeting, reviewing Q3 projections. I left my CFO mid-sentence and had my pilot file a flight plan to Los Angeles before I reached the parking garage. During that 4-hour flight, I ran every calculation in my head. Natasha was 31 years old, marathon runner, vegetarian, the healthiest person I knew. What I didn't calculate was that someone had been slowly killing her for 3 months. When I arrived at Sedano Medical, Dr. Patel met me outside the ICU. The hallway smelled like disinfectant trying to cover something sweeter, the smell of bodies shutting down. Mr. Marlowe, your daughter is in a hypoglycemic coma. Her blood sugar dropped to 28 milligrams per deciliter. Normal is 70 to 100. She's not diabetic, I said. Exactly. He pulled up her chart on a tablet. We ran a full toxicology panel. Her insulin levels are extremely elevated. Someone has been injecting her with insulin, Mr. Marlowe. Repeatedly, over weeks. The paramedics noted multiple injection sites, fresh ones and older ones. The hallway tilted. I put a hand against the wall. Her husband found her unresponsive this morning, Dr. Patel continued. He claims he has no idea what happened. But this wasn't a single incident. This was systematic poisoning. Where is he? Waiting room. Police are questioning him now. Through the ICU window, I saw my daughter. Natasha lay motionless, skin gray as Chicago winter, connected to machines I sold to hospitals. Ventilator, cardiac monitor, IV drips. The machines beeped in rhythm. Beep, hiss, beep. The sound of life maintained by technology. Her hand was cold when I took it. Cold like me. The last time I'd seen her was 14 months ago. She'd flown to Chicago for what was supposed to be a weekend visit, but cut it short after one dinner. Said she needed to get back to Malibu. Brody had some investor meeting he needed her at. Brody Castellan. The man she'd married 3 years ago against every piece of advice I'd given her. I'd kept my mouth shut after that dinner. Didn't want to push her away further. We'd already lost 2 years when she first started dating him. Years where she didn't return my calls, said I was being controlling when I asked basic questions about his background. Now I understood why he'd isolated her. Predators always separate their prey from the herd. I found Brody in the waiting room, talking to 2 LAPD detectives. He looked appropriately distressed, unshaven, rumpled clothes, red-rimmed eyes, playing the concerned husband. Vincent, he said when he saw me, standing up. Thank God you're here. I don't know what happened. I woke up and she wouldn't wake up. I stared at him, really looked at him for the first time in 3 years. Brody Castellan was 41 years old. Good-looking in that generic SoCal way. Tanned, fit, white teeth. He'd told Natasha he was a venture capital consultant, small-time operator, boutique investment firm that folded in 2019. Some allegations about insider trading that never stuck. Nothing I could prove to Natasha that wouldn't sound like an overprotective father trying to sabotage her happiness. Mr. Marlowe, one of the detectives said, I'm Detective Morrison. We'd like to ask you about your daughter's medical history. I answered mechanically. No, Natasha had never been diabetic, no history of mental illness. Yes, she'd seemed fine the last time we spoke. A phone call 2 weeks ago where she'd mentioned visiting Chicago for Thanksgiving. The detectives let Brody go. Not enough evidence yet. They were treating it as suspicious, but without proof of who administered the insulin, they couldn't make an arrest. I watched him walk out of the hospital. Watched him pause in the parking lot, check his phone, and smile at something on his screen before getting into his Tesla, the one Natasha's money had paid for. That's when I stopped being Vincent Marlowe, CEO and father, and became something colder. I made one phone call from the parking garage. Harper, it's Vincent. I need you in Los Angeles, tonight. Harper Leung had been my corporate attorney for 15 years. Ruthless, precise, the kind of legal mind that had built my empire through calculated aggression. What do we need? She asked. No questions. No hesitation. Everything on Brody Castellan. Financial records, phone logs, surveillance, whatever it takes. I want to know every dollar he's spent, every lie he's told, every person he's talked to in the last 6 months. How fast? 72 hours. It's done. I rented a suite at the Four Seasons in Beverly Hills, close enough to the hospital to visit Natasha twice a day, far enough from Malibu that I wouldn't do something I'd regret if I ran into Brody. The doctors said Natasha's prognosis was uncertain. The coma had lasted 4 hours before they stabilized her. Potential brain damage, potential organ failure. They'd know more in 48 hours. I sat beside her bed that first night. The machines beeped. The ventilator hissed. I thought about the last time I'd held her hand. She was 8 years old. We were at Wrigley Field watching the Cubs. She'd sat on my shoulders the whole game, screaming herself hoarse. Afterward, we got Italian ice, and she made me promise we'd go to every home game that summer. We did. All 43 games. Best summer of my life. Then she grew up, went to MIT, got brilliant, got independent, got distant, and when she met Brody Castellan at some charity gala, I lost her completely. I'd been so careful not to push, so careful to respect her choices, so careful to be the modern father who didn't interfere. Careful, cautious, cold. All the things that made me successful in business made me a failure as a father. I'm sorry, sweetheart, I whispered to her still form. I should have fought harder, but I'm done being careful now. Harper arrived the next morning with 2 associates and a private investigator named Marcus Chen, former FBI white-collar crimes unit. We set up operations in my hotel suite. Your son-in-law is drowning, Harper said, spreading documents across the dining table. And he's been using Natasha as a life raft. She walked me through it. Home equity loan of $850,000 taken out 6 months ago. The Malibu house was worth maybe $2.2 million, already had a $400,000 mortgage. Credit card debt of $340,000 spread across 8 cards, 3 co-signed by Natasha. Joint account withdrawals of $180,000 over 6 months, in increments just under $10,000 to avoid IRS flags. Margin account with $420,000 in losses from day trading cryptocurrency. He's been systematically liquidating everything he can access, Harper said. The only thing he can't touch is Natasha's trust fund. That's locked down tight. Only she can authorize withdrawals. So he needed her dead, I said. Or incapacitated. But dead is cleaner. Life insurance pays out. Trust fund transfers to her estate. And as her husband, he inherits everything. No prenup. California community property. Marcus pulled up a file on his laptop. Brody's father was a tax attorney who went bankrupt in 2003. Brody grew up in fallen wealth. Worked as an analyst until 2017. Got fired over insider trading allegations. After that, he reinvented himself as a consultant. Moved in wealthy circles. Dated women from prominent families. Until he met Natasha, I said quietly. Until she wasn't enough, Marcus replied. Phone records show he's been in regular contact with someone named Cassidy Rourke, nurse at a private clinic in Santa Monica. Over 400 texts in 2 months. He showed me screenshots. The texts were coded but obvious. Brody, need refill, same as before. Cassidy, can get it Monday, but this is the last time. Brody, you said that last month. Insulin, Harper said. Cassidy's been stealing it from the clinic and giving it to Brody. She's also his girlfriend. 8 months, separate, hotel rooms, cash payments. I felt something cold settle into my chest. Not rage. Rage is hot, messy, impulsive. This was colder than anything I'd ever felt. I want everything, I said. Every text, every call, every hotel receipt. I want his entire life mapped out. Already in progress, Marcus said. But Vincent, if you're thinking about going to the police, it's circumstantial. Texts about refills aren't a confession. We need hard evidence. Then we get hard evidence. Harper gave me a sharp look. What are you planning? I'm planning to make sure my daughter gets justice. Vincent, Harper. I turned to face her. For 15 years, you've helped me build an empire by being smarter and more ruthless than everyone else. I'm not asking you to break laws. I'm asking you to do what you do best. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. All right, but carefully, methodically. No mistakes. No mistakes. I agreed. Day 2. Marcus called at dawn. I've had eyes on the house since the incident. Brody hasn't visited Natasha once. Yesterday, he took 3 contractor bags to a dumpster in Venice Beach. This morning, he's been in the bedroom for hours. I'm going in, I said. I still had the key Natasha had given me when they first bought the house, before Brody knew to take it back. The Malibu house sat empty when I arrived. Glass walls, ocean views, minimalist furniture. The ocean breeze carried salt through open windows, but underneath, bleach. The too clean smell of someone scrubbing away evidence. No photos on the walls anymore. I remembered family pictures. Natasha's MIT graduation, a Napa trip, their wedding. All gone now. Dust on the frames where they'd been removed recently. The bedroom door was closed. I could hear movement inside. I opened it. Brody was standing in front of the dresser, packing a duffel bag. When he saw me, he jumped. Vincent, Jesus, what are you doing here? Checking on my daughter's house. You haven't been to visit her in 2 days. I needed space. It's been overwhelming. What's in the bag? Just clothes. I'm staying at a hotel. On the dresser behind him were 2 empty prescription bottles. I picked one up. Insulin aspart, 100 units ml, prescribed to David Morrison, not Natasha, not Brody. Who's David Morrison? I asked quietly. Brody's face went white. That's not Cassidy's patient, the one she stole insulin from to give to you. His mouth opened, closed. Get out of my house, he said finally, voice hardening. You have no right to be here. Please call the police, I said. I'd love to explain why you have stolen insulin while your wife is in a coma from insulin poisoning. We stared at each other. You can't prove anything, Brody said. Not yet, I agreed. But I will. I took photos of the bottles, then walked out. Day 3. Marcus retrieved something from the house while Brody was at the marina with Cassidy. We watched the footage in my hotel suite. Harper, Marcus, Richard Weiss, a former prosecutor Harper had brought in, and me. The camera had been hidden inside a decorative frame on the bedroom bookshelf, not installed by Natasha. Harper had arranged it 2 weeks earlier, after my daughter had called her, terrified. She contacted me in late September, Harper explained. Said she'd found insulin pens in Brody's gym bag. She was scared, but didn't want to believe it. I sent Marcus as a security technician. Brody never knew. The video was damning. October 1st, 2:47 a.m. Brody enters the bedroom. Natasha is asleep. He pulls an insulin pen from the nightstand drawer, sits on the bed edge, lifts her shirt. She stirs but doesn't wake. He injects her abdomen, waits, checks her pulse, leaves. October 8th, 3:15 a.m. Same routine. This time, Natasha wakes briefly, confused. Brody tells her she had a nightmare. She falls back asleep. He injects her again. October 15th, 2:30 a.m. The final dose. Natasha's breathing changes 20 minutes after injection. Brody watches, waits, then pulls out his phone, suddenly panicked. "I found my wife unconscious. Please, send someone." Richard Weiss paused the video. That's attempted murder, with the phone records showing his connection to Cassidy, the stolen insulin, and the financial motive. The DA will take this case. The camera was installed by Natasha's attorney after she reported suspicions of poisoning, Harper said. Legal surveillance in her own home with reasonable belief of criminal activity. The footage is admissible. Marcus added, "We also have the insulin bottles you photographed, my surveillance showing Brody disposing of evidence, Cassidy's phone records, financial documents showing clear motive." "How long?" I asked. 72 hours to package everything for the DA, Richard said. I looked at the paused video. Brody's face, illuminated by bedroom light, as he injected poison into my daughter. "Do it," I said. While they prepared the criminal case, I worked on something else, Omega Protocol. Harper had mapped every debt. Marcus had identified every creditor. Over 6 weeks, starting the day Natasha first called Harper, I'd been quietly buying Brody's debts at a discount. The home equity loan, the credit cards, the margin account, personal loans. I owned it all now. $1.61 million in debts, purchased for $1.05 million. One phone call to Harper. Activated. I triggered the cross-default clauses. When one debt defaulted, all others followed automatically. The margin account hit maintenance requirements, forcing liquidation. Credit cards spiked with penalties. By noon, Brody's credit score dropped 200 points. By 3 p.m., I'd filed liens on every asset, the Tesla, electronics, everything. By 5 p.m., foreclosure proceedings started on the house. Marcus called at 6 p.m. He's freaking out. Just got served with 7 collection actions. Brody called my phone at 6:47 p.m. "What did you do?" "I bought you, Brody. Every debt, every loan. I'm calling it all due. You can't. I already did. Right now, you own nothing." I paused. "And tomorrow, you'll be in prison." Click. Day 4. Natasha woke up. I was reading financial documents when her fingers twitched in mine. "Natasha." Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused. Then they found me. "Dad?" Her voice was barely a whisper, hoarse from the ventilator. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here." Tears ran down her face. "Something's wrong. Something's been wrong for so long." Dr. Patel checked her vitals, ran cognitive tests. Weak, confused, but responsive. No obvious brain damage. A miracle. After he left, Natasha grabbed my hand. "Brody," she whispered. "I think he's been hurting me." "Tell me." She'd been feeling sick for months, dizzy spells, blackouts. Brody always explained it away. Stress, overwork, maybe diabetes. 2 weeks ago, I found insulin in his bag. He said they were for a friend. She looked away. That night, I woke up and he was standing over me, just watching. I felt something was wrong. "What did you do?" "I called Harper, your attorney. I got her number from your office months ago." Her voice cracked. "I told her I thought Brody was poisoning me, that I was scared." My chest tightened. "She told me. She helped you. Is he going to..." "He's not going to hurt you ever again," I said. "I promise." Day 5, 11:47 p.m. I was in Natasha's room when the door opened. Brody. He froze when he saw me. "Vincent, I didn't know you'd still be here," Where else would I be? He shifted, glanced at Natasha sleeping. I just wanted to check on her. I watched him, the way his eyes kept darting to the IV line, the way his hand stayed in his jacket pocket. You should go, I said quietly. I have every right to be here. I'm her husband. For now. Something changed in his face. The mask slipped. What's that supposed to mean? I stood slowly, stepped between him and the bed. It means I know what you did. The insulin, the injections, all of it. He went very still. You can't prove anything. The camera in your bedroom says otherwise. His face drained of color. Then his hand moved, fast, reaching past me toward the IV line. I caught his wrist, slammed him back against the wall. Don't. The door burst open. 2 nurses, a security guard. Brody was choking out words. She was worth more dead. The insurance. I needed. My fist connected with his jaw. Once. The security guard pulled me back. Other hands grabbed Brody. Hospital security cameras had caught everything. Brody's confession, his lunge for the IV, my daughter's life saved by a father who refused to leave her side. The police arrived 14 minutes later. This time, they didn't let him go. The DA moved fast. They had video evidence, phone records, financial motive, Cassidy's testimony from her plea bargain, and Brody's confession captured on hospital security cameras. Richard Weiss presented the package 48 hours after Brody's arrest. The trial lasted 6 weeks. I sat in the gallery every day, watched the prosecution build their case brick by brick. The video footage showed 3 separate injections. Forensic analysis matched the insulin batch numbers to what Cassidy had stolen from her clinic. Phone records documented hundreds of communications between them. Text messages about refills and one more time. Financial records established clear motive. $850,000 in home equity debt, $340,000 in credit cards, $420,000 in margin losses, over $1.6 million drowning him, and Natasha's $2.5 million life insurance policy. Her trust fund worth another $3 million that he couldn't touch while she lived. Cassidy Rourke took the stand on day 12. She'd cut a deal. 5 years, eligible for parole in 3, in exchange for testimony. She described how Brody had convinced her to steal insulin, how he'd promised they'd be together once he was free, how he'd told her Natasha was making his life miserable and wouldn't give him access to her money. Did he ever explicitly say he planned to kill his wife? The prosecutor asked. Cassidy's voice was barely audible. He said, 3 more days max, then we're free. I asked what if Natasha woke up. He said, she won't. I made sure. Natasha testified on day 18. Still thin, still recovering, but steady. She described finding the insulin pens, her growing fear, the call to Harper. Why didn't you confront your husband directly? The prosecutor asked. I was scared, Natasha said quietly. He'd isolated me from my father, from my friends. I had no money except what he controlled, and I didn't want to believe the man I married could hurt me. So I called my father's attorney instead. I thought if I was wrong, I'd just feel foolish. But if I was right, I needed help. Her voice broke. I couldn't do it alone. I watched from the gallery, watched the jury's faces as they listened. Brody's defense was predictable. Natasha was mentally unstable, fabricating evidence out of anger over his affair. The insulin injections were her own doing, a cry for attention. He was the real victim. The jury didn't buy it. They deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. Judge Patricia Endo was a 60-year-old woman with steel in her voice. She looked at Brody with cold contempt. Mr. Castellan, you systematically poisoned your wife over the course of 3 months. You isolated her from her family. You drained her financially. And when none of that was enough, you attempted to murder her for her life insurance and inheritance. The only reason Ms. Marlowe is alive today is because she was brave enough to seek help. and because medical staff acted quickly enough to save her life. She paused. Let the silence stretch. This court sentences you to 18 years in state prison, with no possibility of parole for 12 years. 18 years. Not life. Attempted murder couldn't support that since Natasha survived. But 18 years meant Brody would be nearly 60 when he got out. As the bailiff led him away, Brody looked back at me. Finally understood who I was, not the overprotective father he'd dismissed 3 years ago, but the Ice King who'd spent 6 weeks methodically destroying every aspect of his life while he sat in jail waiting for trial. The house, foreclosed, sold at auction. I bought it for $480,000 below market value, gave it back to Natasha. The debts, all called due, all defaulted. His credit ruined for decades. The assets, seized and liquidated to pay creditors, meaning me. By the time sentencing happened, Brody Castellan had nothing. No money, no freedom, no future. And I'd made sure everyone in his cell block knew exactly what he was. A man who'd tried to murder his wife for insurance money. Prison has its own justice system for people like that. The total cost of my revenge, $3.2 million, debt acquisition at discount, $1.05 million. Legal team, Harper, Richard, Marcus, forensic experts, $930,000. Buying the foreclosed house, $480,000. Ongoing surveillance and security, $150,000. Post-trial legal work and asset recovery, $250,000. Court costs and miscellaneous, $335,000. $3.2 million to destroy a man who was worth less than his debts. But some investments aren't about ROI, they're about sending a message. 8 months after the trial, Natasha moved back to Chicago. She'd sold the Malibu house, couldn't stand being there anymore. Used the money to buy a loft in River North, walking distance from my office. The recovery had been hard. Physical therapy for muscle loss, cognitive therapy for mild memory issues, emotional therapy for trauma. But she was getting better, stronger. She'd started working again, remote position for a tech startup, building AI systems for medical diagnostics, using her MIT brain for something that mattered. And every Friday night, we had dinner. Just the two of us. A new tradition. You know what I realized? She said over Thai food one evening. I spent 3 years trying to prove I could make my own choices, that I didn't need your approval. You don't need my approval, I said. No, but I needed your wisdom, and I was too proud to listen. She picked at her pad thai. That dinner in Chicago, before I cut the trip short. You asked if I was happy. I said yes. We both knew I was lying. Why did you lie? Because admitting the truth meant admitting I'd made a mistake. Meant admitting you were right. She looked at me. I'm sorry I put you through that. I'm sorry I didn't fight harder. We looked at each other across the table. Father and daughter, the years we'd lost, the days she'd been in a coma, the 6 weeks I'd spent planning revenge. All of it, behind us now. Thank you, she said softly, for fighting for me when I couldn't. I took her hand. I spent 30 years being the Ice King, building empires, making calculated decisions. But the coldest thing I ever did? Staying silent while Brody destroyed you. You're not silent anymore. Never again. Later that night, alone in my apartment, I opened my laptop. Email from Harper waiting in my inbox. Subject, Jennifer Walsh, case update. Vincent, you asked me to look into Brody's past relationships. Found something. Jennifer Walsh, engaged to Brody in 2014, daughter of a San Diego real estate developer. Died 3 weeks before their wedding. Coroner ruled it accidental overdose of sleeping pills. Life insurance paid out $500,000 to Brody as beneficiary. After Natasha's case made headlines, Walsh family requested the case be reopened. New coroner reviewed the autopsy. Found elevated insulin levels that were missed in the original tox screen. They weren't looking for it back then. DA is reviewing for possible charges. Statute of limitations is complicated, but they're building a case. Brody didn't just try to kill Natasha. He succeeded once before. Thought you should know. I closed the laptop, sat in the dark for a long time, thought about Jennifer Walsh, a woman I'd never met, a woman whose family had probably gone through the same hell I had, wondering, suspecting, but never knowing for sure, until now. Some people say revenge is hollow, that it doesn't bring peace or closure, that destroying the person who hurt you doesn't heal the wound. They're wrong. Revenge isn't about peace. It's about justice, about making sure that when someone tries to destroy your family, there are consequences, real consequences. And sometimes those consequences need to be served cold, cold enough to freeze, cold enough to shatter, cold enough that everyone watching understands. There are lines you don't cross. I thought about Brody in his cell, 18 years ahead of him, 12 before he could even apply for parole, surrounded by men who'd heard what he did, wife poisoner, insurance fraud, the kind of crime that makes even criminals despise you. I thought about the financial ruin I'd orchestrated, every debt called due, every asset seized, credit destroyed, future obliterated. I thought about Jennifer Walsh's family, finally getting answers after 10 years of questions, and I thought about Natasha, alive, healing, laughing over Thai food on Friday nights, calling me dad again after years of distance. That was worth $3.2 million. That was worth everything. They call me the Ice King for a reason, not because I'm made of ice, not because I'm cold or unfeeling, but because I understand something fundamental about frozen water. It's patient. It doesn't rush. It doesn't rage. It just slowly, methodically, inevitably expands, breaking apart everything in its path. Rock, steel, concrete. It doesn't matter how strong you think you are. Ice finds the cracks. Ice widens them. Ice destroys from within. That's what I did to Brody Castellan. Found every crack in his life, every weakness, every lie, every debt, and I froze them solid until his entire existence shattered. People ask me if I regret it, if I think I went too far, if I should have just let the justice system handle it. I tell them this: the justice system gave him 18 years. I gave him nothing. No money, no assets, no dignity, no future beyond a cell, and the knowledge that he'd been systematically dismantled by the father of the woman he tried to kill. That's not revenge. That's just ice doing what ice does best. A Friday night, next week. Natasha and I are walking out of the Thai restaurant when she stops suddenly. Dad? Yeah? If someone ever tries to hurt me again, they won't, I say. But if they do? I look at my daughter, alive, strong, here. Then they'll learn the same lesson Brody learned. What lesson is that? I smile, not warm, not friendly. The smile that made Forbes call me the Ice King. That some sheep have teeth, I say, and some fathers are glaciers. Glaciers. Slow-moving, patient, inevitable. I pause. And absolutely unstoppable once they start their reckoning. She links her arm through mine as we walk to the car. I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart. The Chicago wind cuts cold off the lake. October turning to November. The temperature dropping. Freezing weather coming. My favorite kind. The end.